Well, last week I had all the ironwork for the rockers all fitted and assembled. Now I took it all off. Looks like I'm going backwards. But I've been taking the chance to run them all through the sandblaster. I like to take this mill scale off, and I can put my primer on them. And they're a lot easier to mark with my silver tip metal marker because it stands out on this black really well. Well, these are the irons underneath the rockers on the outside of that curve. And I haven't done those because these ends have to be shaped. These are those same irons off of the 11 passenger, and you can see that they have the corners rounded off. And then also they taper down within the last inch from 1/4 of an inch, maybe to a 1/16. It's pretty sharp. When this sets on the leather throw braces, this wants to get rid of that sharp edge so it doesn't wear on that leather. So I need to shape these before I can prime them. And these are those heavy inside irons on the 11. And you can see this leading edge toward the front is beveled off as well. About a 1/2 inch tapered down to 1/4, 3/16. So I need to grind that in. I could just hammer it out, but I'm just going to take my flat disc grinder and grind that bevel in. So looking at these curves, I have a little bottle here that's cutting oil, and it kind of fits that curve. So I think I'll use that as my gauge for my new ones, just to give me a little bit of a reference. It'll still be kind of free-handed, but then within this last inch, I'm just going to sand that down to a pretty small point on the edge. So I think I want to try to get these onto the body and get the holes in the right position, both in the iron and in the wood. Once I put the side body panels on and the rear body panel on, trying to get my measurements where all this goes is going to be much more difficult. Now while they're out of the way, I can see what I'm doing, even though I don't want to install it yet, because these irons would actually be in the way to do the final fit for that body panel and the rear panel. But to drill all the holes and get those measurements, it's going to be nicer to do it before those panels are there. When I get to the point of putting this side panel on, I want to be able to trim that flush with my bottom frame. So if these irons are already installed permanently, it's going to interfere with that. But if I can get in and clamp these into place and get my hole placements right and get them pre-drilled, see, now I can get in and do all that without that panel. And then after the panel's in place, I should be able to just replace the bolts and put everything back where it's supposed to be. So this heavy inside iron is going to be my starting point. It's going to fit right there. So the framework of this old one that I did years ago, and I don't remember the history behind it, but this is where the bottom of that heavy iron sits, just in front of the toe to the rear curve brace. And that one is about 4 inches long, and this is the placement and pattern of those two holes. So this portion of that iron is longer on this one. I actually have closer to 6 inches. So the other one was only 4 inches about here, and the holes would have been up in this location. So if I put my 8 passenger iron right next to my 11 passenger iron. We're pretty similar in length here, but you can see the difference in length here. On my 8 passenger, I'm going to put these holes probably up in this area here, according to the wood. But these 2 holes are going to correlate to these 2 holes. Now it's possible I could put a 3rd hole down in this area here if I need that support. And then we're going to have a 3-bolt pattern here, and I don't know that I'm going to put it right in this bend like these are. And then we want 2 holes similar up here that will sandwich in that back iron. So there are some variations between the 8 and 11, and even between the 8 that I made these patterns off of compared to that old wood pattern that I have as well. And this is what is left over from the tips of the rockers, and they all came off of that 11 passenger. And you can see the variation in this whole pattern. There's nothing uniform about them. Maybe this one would be closer to that one there. These seem to be pretty similar. But why there is such variation in one coach, who knows? I would have expected more uniformity. I am wired that way. This would kind of drive me nuts. But this is one of those things that I see over and over and over again. Non-uniformity in a lot of these wagons, even these stagecoaches when they were built. So looking at this imprint, and this is where that rear frame came in. See, now this is actually the right side. So I'm going to have to remember that on the left side that I'm working on now, this pattern is going to be this direction. They should be opposite to this. But from this joint back, we're about 2 inches, and then 2.5. This also was a 2.5 inch piece of iron there. So the hole next to my vertical side frame is going to be 2 inches. And on the other side, 2.5. So if we want 1.25 inches between my hole spaces out of 2.5, we actually have 1.25 inches. So this would come in 5/8 of an inch from each side. And while I have those numbers in my head, I want to do the right side as well. I'm going to come back at 2. This side's going to be 2.5. And we're going to be in 5/8 of an inch from each side. So the next 3 holes going up, I'm going to compare my 11. See, we have kind of an odd pattern here, but there's a triangle type shape to these 3. I think I'm actually going to bring my first one up in this area, and then my second of the 3 will be up in here. But I also have to be aware of where this screw is, so I don't want a bolt hitting that screw. So I'm going to bring a mark out so I have a reference of where that screw is, and it is 2 inches in. So this is my mark. My screw is actually right there. I'm going to get these out where I can see them a little better and a little easier to take a camera shot of them. This is the left side of that 11 passenger, and you can see how this first hole is right in the middle of this bend. But if I look at that wood pattern, I think it's actually down a little further on this 8. These are the 2 holes that we looked at previously, but there's another hole right here, and I think this is the first hole, and this is where that bend would be to the toe of the rear curve. So I've drawn a line here that shows me where the edge of my wood is, and remember this is where the screw is. I had thought maybe I'd put a bolt here, but I think I can bring it right across and still miss this screw, and it'll be closer to this hole. This hole I think I'm going to bring down, actually down into this area here. It's in about 3/4 of an inch roughly. I think that can go there, and then this hole could fit, actually could fit right in here, be within our wood. It's going to miss the screw, so the only thing different is going to be this hole being shifted down just a bit. And then these holes up here, I don't know if there's anything super scientific about these. We went about there and there. I do want to make sure they're inside of my wood frame here. My wood frame is in 5/8 of an inch. Could put them in that area there. And I know I'm doing a lot of jabbering. Basically, I'm talking as I'm thinking, but this is the case to where now I have the option to choose where these holes go, and I'm trying to think, is there any reason why this wouldn't work? I think it will, but I will put up my rocker irons underneath and make sure that all fits as well. It's possible that I'll come up and put a third bolt hole on the tip of this, which would actually add more strength to this whole back assembly. So when I did draw out my pattern on my piece of plywood that we have looked at before, this was a 1/2 by 3, and I'm making this 1/2 by 2.5, but you can see the whole pattern on this one is completely different than what I'm going to do on this. The 2-bolt pattern was clear out on the end of this 6" with the single. I just put down the placement of the bolt holes as I saw them. And so there's a single here, there seems to be a single there, then a pair here, then an offset pair up here. So a total different bolt pattern on the iron that I made this pattern off of than what we're going to do with this one. I want to transfer where they might be out on my wood. Help me locate where my iron goes underneath. So these are going to be kind of in this area here when they transfer down below. And that's where this iron needs to fit. And underneath this brace to the rocker, we have this iron that's going to sandwich in on the outside. And I laminated a piece that's going to simulate where that back is going to go. So I'd like to clamp that into place. Bring our rocker back up where we think that needs to be. I'll have to kind of fine tune where this sets as well. And then this outside iron, we want this to kind of sandwich right in this joint. So we're going to be somewhere right in there. So our hole is going to be right in the lower part of this curve here. We're going to come right down here. So we're going to have a nut here, and we're going to have a bolt that comes right down this direction, and then we're going to have one that comes right down that direction. So I may stick one up into this area here, and that's going to correlate up here. We have a bolt right in that area, so we're inside the wood. So this will be our 3-bolt pattern on our outside rocker. So there's another measurement that I need to be aware of. The bottom outside width of our floor is 34.25, but I need to be concerned about the width between my rocker irons. I am at 35.25. I think I'm a little wide. So on our undercarriage that's going to go underneath this 8-passenger, there are these 2 sets of saddles, a pair on each side, and that's where the leather straps called the throw braces are going to go. And these rockers that we're putting on that coach have to sit on top of these throw braces that are going to run through these saddles. So that coach is going to ride on that leather like about so. Well, I need to be aware of the width of these saddles. And I'm right at 35 there. And on the rear, I'm also right at 35. So my rocker irons are setting at 35 1/4. I need to bring them in to where they are 35. So I need to bring these in about 1/8 of an inch. I want to be closer to 3/8 instead of 1/2 inch. Maybe about right there. That's close to 3/8. And I want to bring this one in as well. There's 3/8. So now if I measure across, I'm right at 35. And the top of my irons are just a little bit outside my framework on the right side. And that's about where I'm at on the left side also. So it's going to undercut my 3-inch just a hair, kind of like we'd already planned. So now I should be equal distance on both sides. I have my front irons set up also, but I'm a little wide here, so I think I have to go in. That should put us just like the back side. So this is the front curve coming up to the driver's box, and you can see my framework sits out about 1/4 of an inch from the driver's box side panel. So on the back of this brace, we're coming up just flush with the outside of the frame like it is on the back. But since the side panel steps in that 1/4 of an inch, I have a 1/4 of an inch overhang here. So I'd actually like to shape this down that 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to put a gradual taper down to this area here. But to get this iron to where it sits down more flush with the edge of this driver's box. And since this front iron that comes underneath the rocker is the same 2.5 inch width that these are, I'm going to have to do the same with this. Trim it back that 1/4 inch, and then from here to the tip of the rocker, I'll taper it down. So with the front on, I want to double check my widths. At the rocker mounts, I'm good. Up here at the tips, I'm also good right at 35. Well, I don't know if this conveys the tedious process that is involved in getting all these in the right position. You know, I was kind of just roughing them in before, but now I think I have them to where they're going to be bolted in. I still have to do this little taper on both the right side and the left side here, but position-wise, I think we're good. And also the width between the rockers. You know, it has to be right on in order to fit that undercarriage. Otherwise, we'd have a problem down the road when I went to mount the whole thing together. But I think we have that right. We're at 35 ID on both the rear and the front. So I think it's going to work. Now I just have to start drilling holes. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.